Ada berapa cover?
So, hello everybody. So let's begin. I'd like to ask you to switch on your cameras if you can. So, because I prefer to talk with people, not with a computer. So, okay. So I'm Alexander Okun. I'm a Associate Professor of Samara University. Hi. And I'm a historian, and so I was told I was asked to talk with you about Russian history, Russian culture, and so. And I thought that before we should talk about Russian history, we need to know of history of what we were talking about. We will talk about. Yes. So, what is Russia? Yes, it's a very important question. And so, in history is not only political leaders, tsars, emperors, so wars or something like that, not the political events. But history is the history of people, the history of space, the history of economics, the history of social communities and culture, and so on and so on. And so let's begin to talk about the main factors of Russian history, and so we can better understand the peculiarities of different periods of Russian history, the events of Russian history, the political, social, cultural, and so on. And so the main question is, what is Russia? Exactly, you know, I don't know the answer to this question, and I doubt that anyone can answer this question absolutely. But we can try, and maybe I will ask you to help me to solve this problem. Okay? Okay, good. And so let's begin. And main factors of the history of any country, not only Russia. You know that any state, any country is situated into some space, in some time, and so has different dimensions of demography, resources, and so on. And so the main factors, as I can understand, are: the first one is geography. The space is very important. So it's in case of Russia, it is I think much more important than in maybe any other country. The second one, I will. So we will talk about it later. The second one is demography. The characteristics of people living in that space, in that geography, is very important. The characteristics, very different characteristics. So ethnic, nationality, so age, so and so on. And so the next one is our resources. So I don't think that we have any need to talk a lot about the meaning of resources for development of the country, for economic development, for development of society, and so on. And it's only physical conditions of the history of any community, of any country, but you need to use all that physical conditions, and it's very important. The important tool of using it, of summering it uniting all that different factors is culture. And specific of different cultures create different conditions, different histories, different communities, so and so on. And so we will talk about the peculiarity of the Russian culture. It's very specific. The next important factor is the political system, which is the result, I think, mainly it's a result of the acting of other factors: geography, demography, resources, culture, and so on. And the next one is international relations, because all countries, all people, all communities live with its neighbors, with other cultures, countries, states, and so on, so on. And the relations between them is very important factor, which is which influence. I think the whole, all sides, all periods of living of the community of countries. And for Russia, is international relations is a very important factor in any period of its history. And so let's begin with geography. I think you know that Russia is the largest country in the world. So, but the territory of Russia, the history of expansion of Russia is a very long history, and you can see on this slide the timeline of the expansion of Russia. It was the expansion to the west, to the east, and to the south. Yes, and so during the maybe first few centuries, the expansion was the dimension of this expansion was the west, but that was limits of opportunities. So Russia met European countries, and so had to stop its expansion to the west. And so the most important direction of the expansion was the east. And so you can see that during the I think some like 600 years, maybe more, Russia moved to the east side, step by step, part by part, and then to the end of the 19th century, Russia became the greatest, the largest country in the world. Now it's not so large as it was during the Russian Empire and Soviet Union. Then it was something like 1/6 of the Earth. Now total area of modern Russia is something like a little bit more than 17 million kilometers, and you can compare it with the greatest, the largest countries in the world, and you see that the number 2 is almost half of the Russian space. So Canada, China, United States. So it's much less than Russia. So Russia has 11 time zones, and we can say, as it was said about the British Empire a long time ago, that sun never sets on Russia. When it is morning here in Samara, it is evening in the Far East, so in Vladivostok or Khabarovsk and so on. And it's maybe one of the most important characteristic of Russian as country, as community, as economic, and so on and so on. Okay, do you think that that huge waste space is advantage or a problem for the country, or any country, and for Russia? It's a yeah. What can you say about it?
It is about the diversity. It's too large. I mean, people have very different culture and different ethnics. Just like Malaysia, even we have only three major races here, but the diversity is very hard to be converged together. So I think the larger the country, the more the problem of the diversity of the people.
Yeah, good. Okay, exactly. Because so I see. So the idea is that it's advantage. Yes, of course, it's advantage because the huge waste space has a lot of resources, a lot of people, different geographic, climatic zones, and so a lot of opportunities to live, to produce, to expand, and so on. But at the same time, it may be a problem. Why? Why it may be a problem? Why the huge waste space so
More cost.
okay? Why it can be a problem?
Distribution.
It is hard to manage.
Okay.
Locomotions.
Okay. So the problem is that it's very hard to govern this huge space. Yes, when so it's as I said, this morning in Moscow, it's evening or night in the east end of Russia. Yes, it's the problem of control and government. The next problem is the problem of infrastructure. Yeah, you know, you need a lot of different infrastructure projects to realize, to so unite all the different parts of the country. It's very expensive. Yes, it's very difficult to realize them. The next one is very different climatic zones, and so a lot of a great part of Russia is not very good for living, and so you need to invest a lot of money. You need to invest a lot of resources to make it more or less comfortable. So you know that, and the next one, the next problem is yes, as you said. Okay, so very different kinds of cultures, very different nations, ethnic groups, races, and sometimes it creates a lot. It creates a lot of national ethnic conflicts, religious, ethnic, national conflicts, and so we had a lot of such conflicts in Russian history, but not now, but even in so recent times, you know it. So it at the same time advantage and at the same time a problem, and so it's it's really so. The main question is, yes, it's good if you can use all that advantages, but it's a problem when you can't to control, can't to develop different regions, can't to use all that resources, and so on, can't use all that opportunities that you have, unique opportunities, so which no country, no state in our world has. So it's, and the Russian history is a great illustration for that thesis. That's it had a lot of problems because of that great space, very distant parts of it, with a lot of different conditions in the different part of the country, and at the same time it had a lot of advantages. So which one? So political advantage, that during the Great Wars, Russia has a very vast, long, distant space to use for producing goods, for resources which wasn't seized by the enemy from the west, and so on. During the peacetime, Russia, yes, it has a great, so incredible resources for any industry, for any kind of activity. Oil, gas, gold, metals, coal, anything. So you know that Russia has the greatest, the largest forests in the world. Yes, it's it's also a very important resource. So and so on. So the problem is, if you can use your advantages, if you can use your space, if you can use your resources, it's good, it's your advantage. If you can't, it became problem. Okay, let's go further. The second one is demography. It's very close to the geography, because when you can use your resources, space, the advantages, when you have a lot of people, and you have enough human resources for that. So you need so great, huge space, and you need so enough people for cultivating it, for using it, for developing the different kinds of industries, agriculture, and so on. And you can see the three periods of huge, more or less periods of Russian history. The first one, it was the Tsar Russia, from the 1500. It's a timeline of the population growth in millions, of people. So 6 million in the beginning of the 16th century, and then the very rather fast growth of the Russian population. Why? So it was very, I think something like during the 100 years the population doubled. Yes, you see 6, then more than double. Yes, 15, then even so in okay. Yes, it was important political reasons. Then huge, very fast growth, and it was doubled during 50 years, and so on. And it was so till the end of the history of Russian Empire. So it's an official flag of Russian Empire. So it was till 1917, till the revolution, and the end of the history of Russian Empire. what do you think? Why it was so fast population growth during, especially during last 100 year, 150 years of the history of Russian Empire? So let's, okay. Okay. Yeah, sure. It start to conquer more lands, and so migration, and so, and we can remember the map on the first slide. So the great period of expansion of Russia. It was during the 18th and 19th century, and so Russia included into it a lot of territories with different people living there. So in the east, in the south, it was Siberia, Far East, it was Central Asia, it was Caucasus, and so on. And it was a very fast population growth, very fast economic growth. And it had, so Russia also till in the end, on the eve of the 19th and 20th century, Russia became one of the greatest powers. So it was in J5 of that period. That's a great five great powers on that period. But it was before the First World War. The First World War changed almost everything. Yes, it was a serious crisis. Russia lost a lot of its troops, a lot of territories, and the end of the First World War was the revolution. So the Russian Empire came to its end, and the history of Soviet Union began. The Soviet Union so also became a great country, and so it during 70 years of its history, more than 70 years of its history, it's almost all territories of former Russian Empire. And you can see the very fast population growth during the 20th century. So the peak was 1990. So it's a problem with the microphone. Okay, 1990, when it was almost 300 million of Russian people, of Soviet people, and it was Soviet Union waited that to the beginning of the 21st century, the people of Russia, the population of Russia will be more than 300 million. But that was another crisis and the dissolution of Soviet Union, and now modern Russia has something like half of the population of the Soviet Union on its peak. Yeah, you see, less than 150 million and almost 300 in the end of the Soviet Union. And so, okay, we can go further. Demography is not only the population growth and not only amount of people living in this country. Demography is also different culture, ethnic groups, religions, and so on. And you can see on the slide, you can see the composition, ethnic composition of Russia with more than 120 different ethnic groups in modern Russia. So more than 80% are Russian, and so other different groups, ethnic groups in modern Russia. Now, so it's also, we can say, is it good or bad? Is it advantage or problem? What do you think about it? Okay. What do you think about it? Is it advantage or problem? This very complicated ethnic composition. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. It's the same thing. It's yes. It has pros and cons. Yes. It's advantage and the problem at in the same time. Advantage because it's that cultural differences is a great resource for the development of the country, the development of the community. Other one, we told about it, that the ethnic differences, religious differences sometimes create conflicts. And so you need the same thing. If you can use that advantage, if you can create, if you can conduct your policy with so you can conduct your policy using these differences, using this the positive characteristic of different cultures and different groups of nation. It's good. You can you have advantage, you have opportunity to fulfill the very great different projects. So you see that during the Soviet Union, and we had the Russian Soviet economic system was very developed in different parts of the country with different using different conditions and different traditional economic traditions. So very important industries in central part of Russia and Ural, very high level of agriculture in the south and southeast. So very high level of different textile and so on industries in the Central Asia. And so on. So it was very multi cultural and multi industrial, multi different. So okay, consists the economic of Soviet Union consisted from very different kinds of industries, agricultural and other kinds, other types of production. But the solution of Soviet Union became create a lot of problems for all the post-Soviet countries, because united economic system was destroyed, and after that so different regions saw the problems with different industries or agricultural sector or something else. And it's the same thing. If you can use, if your policy is rational, you will have a lot of opportunities, a lot of advantages. If not, you will have a lot of problems. So according to this slide, we can say that the Russian population has very different cultural, ethnic, tradition characteristics. And so Samara is a great example of it, because Samara is situated just in the middle of the European Russia, and so it was a place where different nations, different ethnic groups, different cultures meet and live side by side. And you can see, so the next slide is the illustration of the cultural diversity in Samara. You can see different religious places. So it's an Orthodox church, it's Armenian Christian church, it's Lutheran church, it's a Catholic cathedral. This is synagogue, one of the greatest synagogue in the region, and this is one of the largest Muslim mosque in Russia, in the whole Russia. And all these different groups of people, all those different cultures live here side by side with no problems and no conflicts for not on years or decades, but for hundreds years. And so it's one of the most important characteristic of the Russian population and the Russian community, the cultural diversity. So, and the next characteristic of demography is the religion affiliation. So is the data on 2005, but I think that nothing changed during the last years. You know, so, and I think everybody in the whole world thinks that Russians are Orthodox, and it's so, it's really so. But you can see that only a little bit more than 50% of Russia are Orthodox. So it's the idea that whole Russia is Orthodox country is not true. Yes, and so you can see a lot of Muslim and other Christian churches and very different, and a lot of very different religious groups in Russia. Okay, again, is it advantage or problem? And then again, we can say that it is advantage, and also at the same time it may be a problem, because you can so you can attract a lot of tourists. Yes, you can attract a lot of migrants. You can and so on. It's good for economic, and it's good for a country, because when we talk about the population, you can see that Russia has a large territory. Russia is the largest country, but the population is not so large. Yes, you know, 100 and less than 150 million people is not enough for all that space. It's great space of Russia. So all that differences, cultural and religious, is good, because it's it can you can use the advantages. You can use the positive potential of different cultures, of different religions, of different ethnic groups. And also, again, it may be a problem, but we talk about it. Okay, let's go further. And so the next factor is resources. So it's obvious. So resources, a lot of different resources is advantage. It's good. Is it so? Yes, of course. But it's the same thing. It's good if you can use it. It's good if you have a rational economic policy. It's good when you can use it for your own interests. And sometimes it may be a problem. You know, maybe you heard about the theory of so-called resource curse. So resource curse. So yes, it's a popular theory now in some Russian, not only Russian, West politologists and sociologists think that sometimes huge resources may be not an advantage but a problem. It may be a curse because it sometimes make the people, make the government to think that they don't need to do anything because you have everything already. You don't need to develop so you don't need innovations, you don't need technology, you don't need modern industries, and so on, because you have everything already. You can change your oil and gas and forest and for anything, for any other goods. And sometimes this theory is rather popular, according to in Russia is often is object of such research in the by other authors of this theory, because in the early period of Russian history, one of the important resource of Russia, which was very expensive and which was the main part of Russian export, was the fur. Yeah, you see that picture. It's a fur trade. The Russian, you can remember the Russian word mech. It's fur. It's mech. So меховая торговля or Russian or fur trade was the most important source of for anything. And Russian fur was very expensive. It was very popular in Europe, and Russia was one of the greatest exporter of the fur from Ural, from Siberia, and so on. And so this is modern times. Also, Russia continued to produce and to sell the fur, but now it's not the main. It's not so important. The most important now is oil and gas. Oil and gas. That resource curse theory tells us that modern oil and gas are also that the part of this resource curse, because if you have a lot of oil and gas, you can sell it and buy anything you need. So do you know what is the structure of the trade between Russia and Malaysia? What Russia export to Malaysia? Do you know?
Oh.
Yes, the same. Oil and other mineral resources, oil and other mineral resources, and equipment for the gas and so on. And what Russia buys from Malaysia?
Oil.
No. We have a lot of oil. Electronics. Yes.
Yeah.
Electronics. Yeah, electronics and so some technology. So and no, also oil, but pale oil.
Yeah.
Not so mineral, but natural oil. It's not very popular in Russia. Palm oil is not good. Russian thinks that it's not good for their health, but we buy it. Okay, and so is it that structure of trade is it better for Russia or for Malaysia? What do you think about it? Yes, both of course. Yes, both of course. But you got from Russia the needed oil, and you sell your. Yes, of course. I also think that Malaysia is had more advantages from this structure of trade, and you can sell your goods. And you have the stimulus, you have your needed resources and the stimulus to develop your industries also. But
Yes.
we don't have it. We sell, Russia sells its oil and nothing else, almost. Oil and other mineral resources. And has no stimulus for developing its industry because it got all the goods and don't need to produce them. So it's small part of the idea of that resources cost theory. So if you have resources and you depend on your resources, it's not good for your economic. It's not good for your development. You don't have stimulus to develop your technology for innovation and so on. So another good example is Japan. You know, Japan doesn't have any mineral resources, but it's one of the most developed industrial countries in the world by now. So it's another example of that ideas. It's not you don't need to have all resources for your successful development. So it's in 21st century, especially. In new high technology, innovation economy of nowadays, you know. And so it's also advantage and problem. It's good to have all resources if you can use it for your own interest, for the interest of developing your own economy, for the interest of developing your own industries, technologies, innovations, and so on and so on. It's only it's you have it's your opportunity which other countries don't have. But in case if you can do it, if you can use it, if you have again rational economic politics, and it may be a problem. Okay, let's go. The next resource is culture. You know, so there are two main characteristics, specific characteristic of Russian culture. Is that usually it's orthodoxy, the specific branch of Christian religion, and Cyrillic. So, you know, you study Russian, and I think that it's one of the most difficult part of it is a Cyrillic. I think this is, yeah, of course, I know that. This is old Russian alphabet. I think you don't study it now. Yeah, it's good for you. It's good for you because it's very complicated even for modern Russians. but it's traditional, old style, more ancient Russian alphabet. But it's not. It's also not so simple, because we talked about religion, and we said that Orthodoxy is not the only one, and so that's dominate, but not only one religion group, and so it's very different, and so. Let's I think the most important characteristic of Russian culture is the cultural synthesis. You saw that slide with different religious buildings in Samara, and it's a very important part of this cultural synthesis. So you can see which I know that I think that you know which one is Russian. So this is Kremlin, and this is Castello Sforzesca from Milano, Italy. It's something like not similar, but a lot of common features. Why? Because Kremlin was built by Italian architects. It was built in 15th century. At the same time, was built at Castello Sforzesca in Milan. And the architects who built it then came to Moscow, to Russia, and built the famous Russian Kremlin, Moscow Kremlin. So it's also we can remember that map, and that expansion of Russia to the west and to the east, and during this expansion Russia communicate with different countries, with different cultures, with different styles of living, with different architectural styles, and all of that different styles, different cultures were included in the Russian culture, and so Russian culture is the main feature is cultural synthesis. So the next example is it's a puzzle. So can you tell me which picture is Russian and which is Italian? Again, which is Russian and which is Italy? Can you?
The right one is the Russian.
No, you're wrong. Right is Italy. It's so most part of Italy, it's from Torino, and this one is St. Petersburg, but it's not it's not a surprise, because this one is street by architecture Carlo Rossi, who was Italian and who went to St. Petersburg and became a famous Russian architecture. He stayed in Russia and died in Russia, and his family lived in Russia, and his son was the Russian architecture, and so on. And we can find a lot of such examples of that cultural synthesis, cultural meeting, cultural exchange with Europe, but not only Europe. So the next one, also the puzzle, which is Russian, which is not Russian. Okay.
Russia. I think the right one. The right one is the Russia.
Is the right one Russia?
No, again, no. Left is Russia. It's Petrograd, it's St. Petersburg, the famous palace of the Peter the Great, which was built in the beginning of 18th century, also by different European architectures, Italians, Swiss, French, and so on. And right is France. It's Versailles. It's important, the famous palace of France kings. You know Versailles. and it's not a surprise, because that's Petrograd Palace was built as Russian type, Russian sort of this Versailles Palace. And so, you know, St. Petersburg, the great cultural, the great political capital and cultural capital of Russia, was built as a European city on it. And so Peter the Great was very fond of European culture, and when after his visit to Europe, he began to build his capital, just like Amsterdam or Italian or Paris, and so he tried to include all that different European styles in one city, in his great capital. And St. Petersburg is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, but it's very eclectical in its architectural style, because it was built by different Italian, Swiss, French, Russians, and Russian architectures, with using very different styles. Because it's again the cultural synthesis as a very important quality of Russian culture. And the next quality is that Russian culture is very open for different influences, for different culture types, and so it's very I think on every period of its development, on every period of its history, Russian culture included different cultures, during this expansion, including different people, inviting people from Europe, from Asia, from China, from any part of Eurasia. It included different cultures, tradition, different styles into its own way of life. So, and another example of cultural diversity, cultural synthesis, is all that different traditional styles, traditional clothes, traditional styles of life, traditional food, and so on. You can see on the left picture the most different ethnic groups, which are the most great different groups in million of people, and we in this traditional clothes. And you can see very different faces, very different race groups, very different so ethnic groups on that right picture, also with its their traditional clothing. So you can see all of them are Russian from the point of view of different countries. From the point of view of Europe or West, all of them are Russians. But they are 120 different ethnic groups with their histories, cultures, languages, religious tradition, the way of lives, and so on and so on. It's one of the reasons why Russia is I think unique part of the world, because I can't imagine any other space, any other place with so different cultures, with so different people, with so different ethnic groups, and so on, religious, and so on and so on. And it's also the main advantage of Russia. It's the one of the most important characteristic of Russia, of Russian people and Russian community and Russian culture. And after all that long talking about different okay, no, so it's too early to go to it. Now we can try to answer the question of the which I asked at the beginning. What is Russia? After all that long talking, can you help me to answer this question? Let's try. What do you think about it? Okay.
I would say that Russia is a country of diversity, which you have a lot of people, a lot of time zone, a lot of resources, which all of part of that is very different. So Russia was founded because of differences of each things that had in Russia.
Yeah. So okay, so it's exactly so, and I can read what you what you write in the chat, and as it's so that Russia is a very important example of multicultural country. It's so, you know, all that idea that multiculturalism is not good, so it's failed and so on. But no, I say so. Look, when Russian people and Russian politicians and Russian politologists tell me that multiculturalism failed and it's the wrong way. Okay, look at yourself. Look at Russia. Russia is the greatest example of where multiculturalism is fulfilled. So it's obvious, and and yes, it's unique unique combination of very different characteristics. Huge territory, a lot of different, you know, maybe you know that the most cold place in the earth, no, besides poles, besides North and South poles, the most cold place on the earth is in Russia. You know, but at the same time we have a subtropical region in the south of Russia. You know, I told you that we have a lot of the greatest forests in the world, more than in Brazil, more than in Amazonia, more than in Canada. So, and at the same time, we have the deepest lake in the world, by Lake Baikal. You know, and so Samara is situated on River Volga. Volga is the greatest river in Europe. So it's a combination of very different conditions, of very different place, of very different resources, of very different people, cultures, natures, religions, and so on. And we can say that Russia is, I think, when maybe a few months ago, when I talked with other group from different countries, we talked about it. They say, okay, we can understand that Russia is the whole world consisted from the different worlds. It's a great, so, and I think, yes, I think it is so. It's a world consistent from different worlds in it. And so you can so Siberia and Central Asia, Siberia and Caucasus, Siberia and I don't know the bank of Black Sea is very different places. So it's very different, and it's great that we have it all in one unity, in one country, in one in one world. And so it's unique. Yes, it's a unique situation because there is no any other country with these conditions, with these characteristics. Yes, I think I read your text, and so yes, it's exactly so. Yeah, it's I'm very glad, I'm very happy that we can in the end we can say that. So it was my aim to try to understand that it's important characteristic of Russia, and it's all that synthesis differences is important factor of Russian history. So it sometimes the Russian history was determined by the differences, but that the combination of the difference, meeting with the different conditions, and so on. And before you begin to study Russian history, you need to understand that specific characteristics of Russia, that specific qualities of Russia as a country, as a space, as a people, as a culture, and so on. And so we will okay, so we'll go to the next and I think only also interesting part of our conversation, of our lecture. So to the Malaysia-Russia relations. Do you know anything about it? Do you know anything about the history of these relations or relations between two countries? Can you tell me anything about it?
We do trades, I guess.
Okay. And so why I ask you, because I think that you have some reasons to study Russian. Yes, you want to know more. You want maybe to be a part of these relations between two countries. Maybe it's not only for reading, I don't know, Lev Tolstoy in Russia, or Dostoevsky in Russia, or Pushkin in Russia. Maybe it's you have some pragmatic aims. Yes, it's okay. Yeah, educate. Oh, of course, education. Of course, not so old days. Diplomatic relations, not so old days. I think it's something like 53 years old. We can talk about it. Yes, also army support, also very different kinds of cooperation. Okay, let's go. So the first contact between Russians and people from Malaysia was during the First World War. During the Battle of Penang, you know, maybe that some Malay fishermen risked their own lives to rescue surviving crewmen from the Russian cruiser Zhemchuk. It's another Russian word you can understand. Zhemchuk, it's a pearl. And which this Russian battleship was yes, Malayan astronaut. We will talk about him. Okay, good, it's good. And so Russian battleship was sunk by the German so during this First World War, and some Russian sailors were saved by Malay fishermen. But the diplomatic relations between Malaysia and Soviet Union were developed only in 1967, and the 3rd of April, and then this diplomatic relations were established, and along with the signing of a trade agreement between two countries. And then it was not very extensive relations, and then was a very so complicated period, short period during the 80s and 90s, and so the first educational exchanges also began after that diplomatic relations were established. In the 1970s, the first group of Soviet students came to study Malay at the University of Malaya. Now, I think it's a very different situation is that educational exchange. I think that something like 2,000 Malaysian students now study in different Russian universities, medical, technical, aeronautic, and so on. And it was during the Soviet Union, and after during the war in Afghanistan, the relations between two countries were not so good, but in the end of 80s it was renovation in that relations, and after the Soviet Union was dissolved, that began the new modern period of the relations between Russia and Malaysia. Two embassies, the Malaysian embassy in Moscow and Russian embassy in Kuala Lumpur. Russian embassies, I like much more Russian embassy in Kuala Lumpur. I think it's much more beautiful. So this embassy in Moscow is not so interesting. It's very, very ordinary building, but this one is very beautiful and a beautiful landscape. So it's good. During the 2000, from 2003, and the relations became more extensive. The exchange of yes, it's home also. Yes, it's home, of course. So I'd like to be there. It's okay. It's warm there. I think it's rather cold now in Russia, in Samara, but I think it's warm in Kuala Lumpur now. Okay. So relations became much more extensive, and so we talked about the structure of the trade between two countries, and it's the amount of it's not a very huge amount of this trade, something like $3 billion. It's not very, so it's not so much for both countries, I think, but it's a good beginning. And so this is I think the most famous example of the relations between Russia and Malaysia. The first Malaysian astronaut or cosmonaut, the next Russian word, cosmonaut, as we called them in Russia. So astronaut, it's more American style, not Russian style. In Russia we call them cosmonauts. And so he in 2007 he was a part of this crew international crew with the Russian Malenchenko, the captain of that flight, American astronaut, and Sheikh Muzaffar Shukor Al-Masri. I think all of you should know this guy because I think that he's a national hero. So as in Russia, no, there is nothing, no difference between cosmonaut and astronaut. In Russia, we call them cosmonaut. In all other world, they call them astronaut. Nothing. It's nothing. It's different. Cosmos is a space in Russia. Yes, and so all the guys who go to space are cosmonauts, cosmonauты. And so all in English or Western languages, all the guys who go to all that Astro, it's звезда, stars, and all guys who goes to stars are astronauts. It's the same thing. And so as in Russia, the first cosmonauts were national heroes. So and you know that Samara is one of the centers of Russian aerocosmic industries. And so we in Samara, so that we produce here in Samara the spaceships, and we have a very interesting museum of space, of cosmonauts. And our university was created by uniting the Aero Cosmonautic Institute and Classic University, and so in our university we also have a very interesting museum of astronautic and aeronautic museum. So it's very important also for Samara. And this is the spaceship which took all of them to the international space station, and he spent there 10 days at that international space station. And do you know that he is not a pilot or engineer, and he is a surgeon. He worked at a hospital. He is yeah, you know it. But there were something like 11,000 people who tried to become first Malayan astronaut, and he won that competition. Selected after all that selection procedure. Okay, and so it's I think it's a good example of the cooperation of mutual interest between two countries. So Russia can offer very deep, not only oil and gas, but very different opportunities for different countries and for Malaysia also. The opportunities in education, in technology, in participation in this. Yes, he is also orthopedic surgeon. Yes, and in all that space and aeronautic industry and so on. And I think it may be a good foundation for cooperation in the future. And okay, we can. So okay, the last slide is, you see, so it's also one of the historical moments. Yes. Some time ago, a meeting between your prime minister and Putin. In Russia, yes, and then on the some economic forum. After that, there were a lot of different agreements were signed, and so it was in 2012. And I think it's I think more symbolic picture, symbolic slide. Telling us that we can go further in our cooperation, in our mutual interests and so on. And it's another question which I wanted to ask you. I think that you have you study Russian language and Russian culture, and you are interested also in maybe in Russian history. We meet next time. We meet in today is on Thursday, so day after tomorrow, and maybe you have any ideas or any special interests in different subjects of different periods of Russian history or something like that, because trying to talk about Russian history, whole Russian history during 2 hours, it has no sense. We only can say different dates or names and nothing else. Maybe you want to know some, you have any specific interests in some topics, and so maybe you can tell me or write, so that I will think what we can do next time. Okay, try now. Maybe you can, if you can do it now, do it now. It will be good for me, because I will prepare something which is connected with your interests. Okay? Do you have any idea?
You have to think.
Okay, good. But I think that you have so something like feedback with these school organizers. Yes, and you can mail, and so not only some, I don't know, your impressions of that lecture, but also your ideas, also the topics that you want to talk next time, and so they will mail it to me. But me or aeronautical history. Okay, good. It's great. It's a great. We in Russia, we are very proud of our aeronautical history, because the first man in space was Russian, and so on. The Sputnik was a great step in the space. Okay, it's maybe one. We can talk about different topics, so it's not a problem. Because if you have another, so others, you can also. And this is my email. And if you will think, okay, cultural topics, you can mail me, and so maybe I think about it during this couple of days until our next meeting. Okay, but now we have some time, and so now I want to listen to you. So I want to know why you are so interested in Russia, in Russian culture, and Russian language. It's not a very usual thing, I think. Not only in your country, but also in other different countries. Why?
Just because it's interesting, I guess.
Okay, so you like to? No, yes, okay, yes, of course, a long history. So something like 2,000 years of history, of political history. So it's not so easy to talk about it during a short period of time. Okay, yes, you like to learn languages, so or is or Russian language or Russia is something exotic, maybe, and so
Um,
yeah.
I would like to suggest about current issue in Russia because uh, I'm really interested in Russian as a veto power in the United Nations. I mean, if
Oh
the
yeah.
current issue about some interesting current issue, maybe about the exploration of Antarctica or the cosmonautic exploration, maybe about the nuclear explorations in Russia, because all of that opportunity was not being given to other country than the veto country. So it but it must to be the current things lah. So that we will catch up in the international news, maybe.
Yeah, yes, yes, I understand. I see. Okay, yes, it's a good so reason to learn Russian. Yes, yes, it's okay. Oh yeah, I see. Oh yeah. Yeah, also it's good, yes, it's a good opportunity to know more about Russia, about Russian. Oh yes, Russian language is very interesting because it's very different. So from our Western and Eastern languages, and so it's also yes, it's very interesting. Okay, yeah, you want to speak and read? Good. So I think that learning languages and knowing different cultures is a way to be more open for the world, to be to become more I think wealthy man or lady, because you have you know more than a lot of other people. You have more opportunities. You can understand different cultures, different ideas, different languages. So it's good. Okay. Oh yes, yes. Yeah, of course. He. No, it's yes. It's the usual thing. All foreign astronauts who fly on Russian spaceships should speak Russian, more or less, because in any case, in different cases, they have a lot of problems, and it was one of the condition, and so it was one of the exam during the selection procedure. You should prove your Russian your capability to speak and to understand your colleagues. So it's important because some in different situation it can save your life in space. Okay, yes, yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so I think I see that the one idea, the one topic is the history of Russian astro, our space program, and okay, it's good. Okay, and so nobody had an opportunity to come to Russia. So no one of you been in Russia. Yes, I can understand.
No.
So welcome, welcome. It's if you understand the culture, you can't understand the people, you can understand country before you are in it. So you can read a lot, you can speak, and so anything, but it's not enough. You can't understand the spirit of the country, you can understand the spirit of the people. Instead, you live here. Instead, you live among them. It's very important if you want to understand. Yes, it's really so. and it's very interesting to visit different places with very different cultures. Yes, I hope you one day you will come here. So if you want, if you have an interest, you can fulfill it. So it's up to you, of course. Okay, okay, okay. So I will wait for your feedback, and maybe we can offer some other topics. But I can understand that Russian space program is one of it, and okay, and so I can think about other maybe interesting topics, maybe some cultural or some important historical periods of Russian history, which changed a lot of in Russian, in the history of Russia and history of Russian people and the Russian state. Okay, okay. So, okay, we have a lot of people are calling me. So, so I can understand that we have some time yet, but maybe we can end our lecture now, because I think that it was maybe too move maybe so you are a little bit tired of all that dates, so pictures and so on. Okay, maybe next time we can speak on different topics and have whole 2 hour or more lecture. Okay, thank you very much. So bye. Bye-bye. Hope you will meet on Thursday, so day after tomorrow. And so take care. Bye-bye.
Спасибо. До свидания, guys.
Welcome. Yeah, good.